third down, caught us in a couple man coverage things where they ran pick routes. There were some of those situations too, but he was getting the ball out pretty quick a lot of times, unless he got out of the pocket or unless it was maximum protection.
That was Mike Zimmer talking about the lack of pressure on Aaron Rodgers and making Aaron Rodgers hop into DeLorean and go back in time and look like he did in like 2012. So welcome into Purple Daily, Phil Mackey, Judd Zulgad, and Declan Goff. And it's your lucky day, everyone.
Get those nerds! Nerds!
Because this is our football nerd segment of the week that we're going to dive into. But just a quick shout out to Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Federated's been helping business owners in the state of Minnesota for over 100 years. And whether you're in a pandemic year like we have been in this ridiculous 2020 or any other year, it helps tremendously to have an insurance company that gives you peace of mind as you navigate the challenges of running a business. So when you partner with Federated, you get more than just a policy. You benefit from over a century of experience in making businesses successful. Visit federatedinsurance.com to find your local representative. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. So, should we just dive right into the football nerd segment here?
Yes.
You guys want to nerd out?
Yeah, let's do it. I love nerds.
Nerds!
So every week, we're going to take just a compilation of numbers, whether it be Pro Football Focus or things from the box score that stood out, nerdy deep dives into what happened on Sunday or just general trends with the Vikings. Let's start with this one. The Vikings offensive line allowed 7 pressures, which isn't terrible.
No.
Offensively. So we'll get to the defensive part of this in a second, but the Vikings offensive line only allowed 7 pressures in that game. However, 5 of them came through Pat Elflein. So your overall assessment of the offensive line play and knowing now that most of the pressures that did come at Kirk came through Pat Elflein.
One, I'm not surprised in the least. I mean, you're taking a guy that was not good at left guard and you're putting him at right guard and you expect it's going to be a big improvement. I mean, his skill set is lacking. So what I would say as a whole off the statistic of 7 pressures is I would give the Vikings offensive line an incomplete though because of the amount of offensive plays that they ran or probably more importantly did not run.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to make a judgment about how this line is going to hold up consistently when you possess the ball for 18 minutes plus, I believe. It didn't even get to 19. So I don't really take any good or bad here. I take an incomplete because I need to see them actually possess the ball for a normal amount of time to see how things start to work out with what I don't think is going to be an offensive line that's going to be drastically different and great, but it definitely is reconstructed in some ways.
I would say, I mean, it is historically one of the worst time of possession performances in NFL history to only have the ball for 18 minutes. I might be getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw a number come across like ESPN stats and information that said since they've been tracking it since like the early 2000s, it is the worst time of possession performance in the NFL over that stretch. So someone can correct me in the comments on YouTube if I'm wrong on that. But I think my takeaway is even though they didn't run as many plays as you would like, the offensive line wasn't a disaster. There were definitely moments, and you definitely like Kirk, even on the first series to complete one of his passes, Kirk had to dodge pressure and make a play with his legs. But overall, I didn't think, and the numbers from Pro Football Focus would suggest this too, that the offensive line was a disaster. But the fact that Pat Elflein, even with limited offensive plays, found a way to open the gate 5 times, that is a little bit troublesome because that's kind of been his thing the last 2 years. He's just not great in pass protection.
And that's not surprising too. But I just need to see way more here to see if this is going to work. I did find it very intriguing, by the way, that in his day after press conference, Zim acknowledged that Alexander, the cornerback for the Packers, who sacked Cousins for the safety, was supposed to be picked up by somebody, but he didn't say who that person was.
Interesting.
So I'm very curious as to who that person was and if Dalvin did something wrong, which I have no clue. But Zimmer definitely threw an unnamed co-conspirator under the bus, but wouldn't tell us who it was.
And then the other part of the safety discussion too is like, it is a quarterback's main responsibility to walk up to the line of scrimmage, identify the defense, and it's a chess game. You're trying to determine, is that cornerback going to come to the line of scrimmage? Is he not? And so, it would be really interesting to sort of get the all 22 and see if you could put yourself in Kirk's brain. Did he know that guy was coming and thought that someone was going to pick him up? Or did Kirk get surprised that there was going to be someone coming off the edge from the secondary?
Kirk is not absolved by any means, in my opinion, on that play, but I will say it again. I don't know that when we've seen Kirk Cousins play as long as Kirk has, yes, he should account for that guy, and yes, he takes some of the blame. But can I sit here and tell you I'm absolutely shocked that it got screwed up? I just can't.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be fair to say, Kirk Cousins, if you don't do, these are the type of things Kirk Cousins doesn't do well. Blindside pressure is not something, unfortunately, that he really accounts for or feels at times.
Even like the most mobile quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson doesn't want to see blindside pressure. So, the blindside pressure unabated to the quarterback is always a bad thing, but it's even worse when you're not that mobile.
That is a nerdy football term, by the way, and it's a great term.
Unabated?
Unabated is a great word.
That's right.
Like, is anything else in life?
Well,
Unabated?
I made my way unabated to the freezer last night for some frozen milk duds, and then I made my way unabated to the bathroom about 15 minutes later for.
Well, I hope
after.
no one. I hope the cats weren't trying to block you from the bathroom.
No, they know to stay clear.
I was gonna say those are smart cats.
Let's just say that if you're looking to avoid having to rush unabated to the bathroom, you might want to limit yourself to something fewer than 15 milk duds in one sitting. Okay.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna throw that out there.
Get those nerds! Nerds!
All right, item number 2 here, football nerd segment. All right, let's get to the Vikings defense and pressure. I'm going to throw a couple of these things in one lump because you had a nugget and I've got a nugget. We're going to combine them together here. The Vikings defense, according to Pro Football Focus, pressured Aaron Rodgers just 7 times as well. So each defense generated only 7 pressures. Now, the Packers ran a lot more offensive plays. The Packers had just as many dropbacks as the Vikings had total plays, basically, in that game. And so for the Vikings to get only 7 pressures on Aaron Rodgers on 44 dropbacks is pretty alarming. Now, obviously, Daniil Hunter did not play, and Yannick Ngakoue was dealing with some sort of an ankle problem, so you just didn't really have your guys coming off the edge. It reminded us of like the 2005 Vikings, where they just didn't have anybody coming off the edge. But here's the so you brought this up yesterday. Well, okay, you got to get some pressure on him somehow. You got to force the issue. You got to blitz. Well, Arif Hassan from The Athletic found a nugget from Sport Radar saying the Vikings blitzed Aaron Rodgers 43% of the time that Rodgers dropped back in that game. Now, last year, the Vikings averaged 25% on their blitz rate, and the league average was 29%. So whether you're comparing to the league average or the Vikings average from last year, they did, according to Sport Radar, bring more pressure on about half of the snaps that Rodgers dropped back. Your thoughts? It didn't seem like it. I'll tell you that much.
It should make me feel better that Zim blitzed more than to the naked eye I thought he did. Okay.
Or does it make you feel worse?
It makes me feel worse. It makes me feel worse. Anthony Barr was sent on a team high 12 blitzes. Kendricks 6 times. In Eric Kendricks' defense in this game, I saw him a lot. Like, there were a lot of plays, a lot of times that 54 did something, and I'm like, oh, there's Kendricks. Okay, here's the scary thing. You blitz on 43.2% of the dropbacks by the Packers, which is a lot for you. It's a ton for you. Anthony Barr, who we've been, moaning and whining and complaining about not blitzing enough, blitzes 12 times. So by 6, the most of anybody. I still don't remember really seeing him. So I should feel better that Zim compensated more for the lack of pressure by blitzing than I initially thought he did. But I don't, because he did what he should have done, I guess, more often than I thought he did. And you never even came close to getting home, really. So
I'm shocked.
I feel worse.
I got to be honest. This is why I love some of this. This is why this segment's going to be super fun throughout the course of the season.
Nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
When most of us watch a football game, now I know that like when you used to cover the beat and I covered the beat for a while, we would chart certain things and snap counts and things like that. But now, like when you're watching a game, you're not necessarily charting how many times Anthony Barr blitzes. It's a lot of eye test and feel, and then when the data comes out afterwards, you can really get. And so I love, like, if you would have asked me, you watched 3 hours of Vikings football, how many times did Anthony Barr blitz in that game? I would have said 4, maybe 5. Like I remember him. I remember him blitzing a couple times. I never would have guessed 12.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting. So he basically blitzed on 1 out of every 4 dropbacks by the Packers, and very clearly did not get home, because it's one of the only times you're ever going to see the Vikings not sack a quarterback in a game. So
and 7 pressures total.
That's crazy.
Like, think about all of this together. Like, this is, I think if you're the Vikings defensive coaching staff, think about digesting the stats that you're throwing at me right now and saying, what do we do next? Sort of. And I get it. Your litany of quarterbacks aren't going to be as good as this guy was. So there are going to be some, but Russell Wilson now, do you have Hunter back for that game? Like you did.
Russell Wilson was ridiculous on Sunday too.
I know.
Which is not shocking.
But I mean, you did on Sunday, you technically, I guess, did some things that you thought would compensate. And it's not that they didn't compensate. They didn't come close.
Yeah. So that's the story about the pressure. So I think we all watched and saw the Vikings' futile attempts to get pressure, but to know that they did try to do more blitzing and they did try to bring more than they ordinarily would. So that's a little bit unsettling.
Get those nerds! Nerds!
How about this one? According to PFF, Holton Hill had the lowest graded defensive performance by anyone on a really bad and poorly graded Vikings defense overall. So he covered Devontae Adams for 9 throws. They did move Devontae Adams around a little bit, and they had him in different spots, and he torched pretty much everybody. But he specifically torched Holton Hill. 9 throws to Devontae Adams when Holton Hill was covering him. 6 catches, 81 yards, a touchdown, and 4 first downs out of the 6 catches. So Holton Hill, one game does not tell the whole story here, but Holton Hill, we've been sort of waiting on him. He served the suspensions, and Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman have stuck by him based on pure talent and everything he's done behind the scenes to try to amend for letting his team down.
Mm-hmm.
And this was kind of the first, like, hey, man, you're the guy now. Trey Waynes is gone. Xavier Rhodes is gone. It's you, it's Mike Hughes, and it's the rookies. And this was a very poor debut for Holton Hill. It felt like every time Devontae Adams wanted an out route.
You're being far too kind, I think, with those numbers.
It was a disaster. So what would you do? Like, do you start him again? What are your thoughts? And technically, I don't think he started. I believe the starting outside cornerbacks were Mike Hughes and Dantzler.
You are correct.
Yep.
You are correct.
But he was in the rotation of 3.
Oh, okay. So here's what I do, big picture wise, because you know what? Hill had a terrible day. I completely get that. Statistically, it was even worse than I certainly thought it was. But let's not necessarily panic on one player, because the situation you have put yourself in this predicament unless you're going to go out and get a cornerback right now.
Yeah.
You've got what you've got. And I think bailing on Holton Hill completely is just premature. But big picture wise, here's what I would do. I would look at the snap count, how they divvied things up on Sunday. And I would ask this question. So Dantzler, who was your 3rd round pick, played the most snaps of any corner, including Hughes. Hill and Hughes, I think, were very close in snaps. And then your 1st round pick, Jeff Gladney, I believe, played 9 snaps in the entire game. And I think that they were all late, but his knee must be fine because he wasn't put on the injury report last week. And he also played 6 plays on special teams. And I don't think if a guy was banged up and you were concerned about him, you would play him on special teams. So I guess my question isn't, or my point wouldn't be that I would be bound and determined to bench Holton Hill. I think he still has to get more chances. My biggest takeaway question-wise is because, I mean, you are committed to this being in some way, I think, as much as Zim probably hates this term, a learning experience period for players, right? No preseason. These guys are young, right? My question would be, why aren't you getting Gladney into the mix with Dantzler and Hughes and Hill? And if
Gladney played like a handful of snaps.
He played 9 snaps. But the point is, I'm not bound and determined to bench Holton Hill, but I do want Gladney to play. And I do think that if that comes from some of Hill's snaps or Dantzler snaps, that's fine too. So I guess my thing isn't that I'm going to fix this by making one move and benching one guy, but you're going to have to accept the fact that what we saw Sunday playing the quarterbacks that you are pretty much going to play throughout the course of this season is going to happen. Mm-hmm. So you've got to get these guys in there. And I don't think it can be, well, Gladney's the farthest back, so he's not playing. They all have to play. And it's not like, I don't think you can find me stats from Sunday that say they found the solution.
No.
I mean, that's a long way of saying you've committed to this. So you got to play your guys.
Yeah, and I so if I could unpack what you're saying here is you've got Dantzler and Gladney, who are rookies, and you've got Holton Hill, who's inexperienced. He hasn't played that many snaps.
Mm-hmm.
And you got Mike Hughes. I think Mike Hughes has probably earned the right to play the most snaps if there's a pecking order, just because he's the most experienced. I would look, and I get that, like, between Holton Hill and Dantzler and Gladney, maybe Gladney long-term is the guy you feel more comfortable with in the slot. So you have to figure out, like, between the young guys, who's better in the slot, who's better outside. But I agree with you in that I would look to get all four of those guys some meaningful amount of snaps so that you can figure this out. Because you don't have the 4 preseason games to be able to say at least, all right, well, Gladney is way behind. And so you're just kind of guessing based on practice. I'd throw him into the fire. And hell, what do you got to lose at this point based on how bad your secondary and your overall defense was in that game? Jeff Gladney should probably play more than the 9 snaps or whatever it is that he played.
That's what I didn't get about that.
I got one more for you here.
Those nerds! Nerds!
Football nerd segments. The Vikings missed 9 tackles in that game. The Packers missed 8 tackles. So on a rate basis, the Vikings missed a higher percentage of tackles than the Packers did. And I was wondering, all right, how bad was that compared to some of the other games and teams around the NFL? And it was bad, but the Las Vegas Carolina game, for instance, Raiders and our Teddy Bridgewater Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
So they had 13 and 11 missed tackles, respectively. So there's just a lot of it. I haven't gone through every game
I
yet.
bet the tackling throughout the league in week 1 was bad.
Yeah, pick another game. What other game could have had a lot of missed tackles? How about, I bet you Chicago-Detroit probably had a lot of missed tackles.
It's a Pop Warner
Actually,
game.
no. How about this? Chicago missed 2 tackles in that game. That's it.
Philadelphia, Washington.
That was some putrid football.
And Philly blew it. So
Philadelphia missed 9 tackles.
Yeah, see, I bet 9's about the average.
Washington missed 10. Okay.
I bet 8 to 9 missed tackles per team in week 1 was about the average, because
the Jets missed 16 tackles.
Well, why Adam Gase is still coaching is beyond me. Another candidate for buffoon of the week.
He doesn't look like a buffoon because he's not chubby.
Right, but
he definitely falls in the category. That's me stereotyping buffoons, by the way.
The eyes,
that's my bad.
The eyes are scary.
Yeah, he hasn't blinked.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The eyes are scary with Adam Gase.
He hasn't blinked since he signed the contract.
The missed tackles are the least of my concerns.
I think that fixes itself more likely than some of the other things.
That is if I'm going to sweat something I saw a Sunday in that putrid performance, missed tackles probably is about 15th on my list.
Yeah.
Get those nerds! Nerds!
So with all of that, that's your deep dive nerd football segment of the week. Let's go around the room here. What would you guys say are the most fixable things that went wrong on Sunday that you feel like, all right, maybe it's not an overnight fix, but within a reasonable amount of time here in the next month or so, that shouldn't be a huge issue going forward?
I'll give you a few things. One, as I said before, missed tackles. You had a lot. You're probably going to not be great in the art of tackling in fairness. And this is going to be a league-wide thing. First 3 weeks, it'll correct itself. Something else I can fix easily. I can go to my guy Coops. I can say, we got this young tight end. He's pretty good. Gary, meet Irv Smith Jr. and use him.
Meet one of your weapons here.
He had one target. There's no like that's a choice. That's a choice. You made a choice. If I'm talking to my child, I don't have one, but if I was talking to my child and that child did something stupid that the child did on his or own volition, that's their choice, right? Like Irv Smith Jr. was not shut down.
Is Irv Smith Jr.
I'm not saying he's going to win a game for you, but my God, he's good.
I would say that pretty obviously Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen are your two most those are your two top weapons on offense.
Mm-hmm.
If Irv Smith were given equal chances to touch the ball as all of the other weapons not named Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook, would he be your third most valuable weapon? Because I think the answer is yes. Now, there's a reason why he only was targeted one time, and I'd like to know more about that reason. But if you gave him,
I'm thinking
Justin Jefferson, BC Johnson, Kyle Rudolph, Alex Madison, Irv Smith Jr., and they all got to touch the ball 10 times, who does the most damage?
I'd buy that.
Irv Smith Jr. does.
Yeah. I'd buy that.
Get him the ball.
Yeah.
10 might be aggressive, but 5? Not 1.
But one, and I think it came in garbage time. And 1, that's ridiculous. And then my third thing would be, I don't know if there's something defensively beyond missed tackling that doesn't scare me to death, to be, because I mean, experience will, but that could be a ways, and you play some great quarterbacks. My third thing, I guess, would be, go back to offense. It would be the involvement, Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin rushed for 50 yards. And the most important stat to me involving Cook was 2 targets, 1 reception, -2 yards. You didn't pay him all that cash for him to be a target twice. And if there's anything, again, the play that the safety came on, all right? There's a lot of different calls that you can make there that are a lot safer. And if they involve Dalvin Cook, I'm going to be honest. If it's like a short pass or a run or something, I feel pretty good about myself right there. So if I'm the Vikings and the Wilfs, I didn't give Dalvin all of that cash and security for him to be like, oh, you know what? He had 50 yards rushing. No. So those are my 3 things.
Declan?
I think, well, just in general, like the time of possession is going to change. Like there's no way in hell that the Vikings only touched the ball again for, what was it, 18 minutes or the lowest amount in the last 40 years. So that's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
How efficient you are on offense and defense, obviously we'll have to wait and see, but I don't think the Vikings are going to be out there for 18 minutes. So naturally, I think Dalvin Cook is involved more. And then I would also still like to see Kirk Cousins to spread things out more. You know, he only threw to Adam Thielen for the majority of the first 3 quarters of the game. So I think in general, he's going to be targeting guys like Irv Smith and hopefully Justin Jefferson. So I think what will change mostly is your time of possession, so you'll get your offense more in a rhythm. And then Kirk Cousins also looking around, because you have to go by committee. With Stephon Diggs out and Adam Thielen being really the biggest target, eventually teams are going to try their best to put a clamps down on Adam Thielen, and that's when you're going to have to be forced to find other players around in your offense. So I would say those 2 things are time of possession and then just Cousins spreading the ball around to other players.
You know, it's funny. My initial answer was going to be, well, I mean, the running game, they kind of ditched the running game because they fell down by so many points. That's going to fix itself. They ran the ball 22 times for 134 yards, 6 yards per carry, and a couple of touchdowns by Dalvin Cook.
Not bad.
Now, Dalvin Cook only had 12 carries because, again, they were playing catch up and they just didn't run that many plays in the first half. And so I guess I would amend it by saying the running game will be more of a featured aspect of the Vikings offense in games starting this week where you run more than 2 offensive plays in the first half.
Right.
So,
but to Dex's point, and I agree completely, I need Cousins and I need the game plan to be this. Don't worry about who your technically wide receivers are. Like Dalvin Cook has to be a major part of this passing game now. Irv Smith Jr. as well, right? So that's the thing is, you know, Kirk, we don't need you looking for Tajay. I don't care if you don't look for Tajay Sharp once. To Dex's point again, spread the ball out, but spread the ball out to the people that should get the ball in their hands.
Yeah. So to go into the pie chart of receivers. So Adam Thielen was targeted 8 times, BC Johnson 4 times, Alex Madison was targeted 4 times, Dalvin Cook twice. Dalvin Cook again twice to Irv Smith's once. Irv Smith and Dalvin Cook, of the 25 targets in that game, I don't need Tajay Sharp to get one on a 40-yard pass. And I honestly don't need Rudolph to get targets before Dalvin Cook. Just straight up, like Kyle Rudolph has been a great asset to this team, and he's great in the red zone. But there's something that's a little bit off to me about. And now, again, the numbers bear out that Kirk Cousins, outside of the bad interception, had a good offensive performance. But as you dig a little bit deeper here, Dalvin Cook just signed a big contract, only touches the ball 13 times in that game. I get that there was limited plays, but let's find some ways to get the guys the ball that can do the most damage, I guess. Even though defense was the reason why they lost this.
Right.
We're just doing a deep dive here.
Yes, so. Yeah. And I would say that if we're going to focus on 2 plays in particular, so because they didn't run a ton of plays, but let's just take 2 plays in particular. The safety and the 4th and 3 are inexplicable to me. Like that's not doing what you do well in those situations. So if the sharp pass is on first down and you take a shot, okay, cool. You took a shot, didn't work. But if you think about those 2 plays and just hone down on them and what they meant at that time, I don't think that either of those play calls are catering to what they do the best. And they're certainly not catering to the key players that we all think should be involved.
Well, play action is a thing that they do really well, but running play action out of your own end zone
you.
in that
Yes.
situation is
Amen.
risky when you don't have a mobile quarterback. So you better make sure if you're going to run that play out of your own end zone, you got to make sure you're buttoned up and think about what if they run a corner or a safety in on a blitz.
And to that point too, to dive super geeky deep, is it fair of the play caller to think that Cousins is going to find a protection that most quarterbacks with his experience could find when we know that he can struggle with that?
Get those nerds! Nerds!
Like, we can all sit here and pound the table and be like, he's got to see that man, he's got to account for him. And we're not wrong, but it's like if you gotta, if you know a buddy or something and he's got a tendency and then you set him up to fail, that's sort of your fault too.
And I will say that just to tease for tomorrow, we're going to do a deep dive into Kirk Cousins tomorrow and talk more about sort of the state of Kirk Cousins once a week on this show. And I have a couple thoughts that are more just watching the NFL all day on Sunday and watching Kirk Cousins, who again he was fine. Like, in fact, his PFF grade was great. It was like a 90 on a 1-to-1.
I think it was the second best to Thielen's on the team.
Yeah, it was, and he was fine. He was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got some takes on just Kirk Cousins within the realm of quarterbacks in the NFL right now that we'll save for our dive tomorrow. But that has been your football nerd segment
Get those nerds! Nerds!
of the week here on Purple Daily with Mackey and Judd. Declan, we appreciate everyone who jumped into Vikings Vent Line with us on Sunday. We're going to keep doing that in video form. And if you aren't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Purple Daily Podcast, and we will see you tomorrow.